I'm a guy that's 24. Each day I build some more. I like episode 7 and episode 8. I'm Rich Boy J. Hello boyos, Rich Boy J here, back with another video, and this is going to be episode 28 of the Starkiller base mock build series. Before we get into any of the things that I did this week, I do want to give a very special thanks to those of you who donated via the live stream. So shout out to Dan61, 51 SW Bricks, Cosmic Brick 44, Chris Blank Productions, Nar Nar Bunks, Brickfreak, and Kult of Christiansen. You guys are awesome. I really appreciate your support of this build. If you guys aren't tuning into live streams, I certainly urge you to do so. It is a great way for you to not only see the mock early, but to also just hang around with some boyos, talk Star Wars. What more could you want than that? This is probably the coolest update I've ever done of any mock update. This is just something that I've been wanting to implement into this build for a long time, and it has finally been done, and it has successfully been done. I guess the title probably gave it away, but you guys can see that we have a claw machine actually in this build. And if you're wondering why the heck there's a claw machine in the build, it's actually an Easter egg from the Lego Star Wars video games, and it's something that I've been wanting to do forever. I know I've always wanted to implement something like that into a build. I had the perfect opportunity to do so by having a Hangar in this mock, and I didn't really want to talk about it too much until I knew for sure that it was possible, because I didn't really have experience building claw machines. But this episode will show you basically how I came about to develop this. So if you're wondering why there was a weird 2-week hiatus from Starkiller, it's just because I've been trying to figure out how to get that thing to work, and it's pretty cool. There's some pretty cool results. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's update. I know you're going to love it. Here's a quick look at the first iteration of the crane mechanism. I basically just wanted to figure out how the claw and the drop down mechanism would work. So here's just a video loop of me basically figuring that out. Alright, so to start things off with this part of the mock, last time you saw it, it was basically just this wall section right here, but we have finally built up this middle section, and it's just more of the platform, and you can imagine when it's fully displayed, the TIE Fighter will be sitting somewhere in that general area. But while I did mention I was going to work on this right here, just basically duplicating that on top of there going up, what I actually decided to do instead, and I think this is going to be super important for the contraption that's going to have to fit up here, is to actually just work on the opposite wall to this side. Like, I would love to have, a fully, not really fully, but mostly enclosed hangar right here, and also be able to just get the crane sitting up there and figure out exactly how that's going to work and be able to show it to you guys in this episode. So let's go ahead and work on it a bit and see how far I can get. Oh my god. So we finally have, not really finally, it's not exactly complete, but this is a pretty good look at what this hangar is going to look like once all the walls are done. We got most of them done on this side. I still just need to do these sections with the lights on them. I also still need to put in those half circle tiles to cap those off. I actually do have those, I just haven't put them on. I've been working so tirelessly on getting this section right here built up. It's kind of hard to convey just how much time something like this takes. I really don't think the camera, the video screen that you're watching this on right now can convey just how large this mock is as a whole. But it took me quite some time to get this whole section, it's not the whole section, but even just as much as I've gotten done, finished off. It's a lot of filler down even underneath it, and then these two pillars come all the way to the top. I'm not gonna show off the design for that again. I already did it for that side. It's basically just a mirror image of it. But the whole point of getting most of this done was to be able to mount the crane to the top. And it is a functional crane. It's pretty freaking awesome. It just brings such a big smile to my face having this as something that actually works in a way that people can interact with the build, because up until this point, you know, as someone who just loves those Lego Star Wars games, I've made it a point to include some sort of Easter egg from them in all of my builds. But this was the one I knew I wanted to do at some point. I didn't have really the space to do it. And then once I knew I was doing Starkiller and I knew I'd be doing a Hangar, I thought, oh, well, that's perfect, because the claw in the game actually it happens during the Death Star mission, and it's in the Hangar. So I thought, well, like, what better time than to try to do it now? I really held off on just talking about it and making it like a point to say, oh, I'm going to do this, because I never built a crane, don't really deal too much with Technic and with the motorized stuff. So I didn't want to commit to something or get people's hopes up for a project that I ultimately just wasn't going to be able to complete. But it is built. It's not perfect. There's still a few changes I need to make. And if you're wondering, like, oh, like, those colors, it just looks awful. It's just a mismatch of colors compared to the rest of the build. This is mostly a prototype. Like, while it does work, I'm going to basically rebuild it in more of a consistent color scheme. So, like, when it's sitting in there in the build, it doesn't just look like a mess compared to everything else. But for the most part, it works, and I'm going to show you guys actually how it works in a little bit, but I did just want to go over kind of my plans for the Hangar in general. So one of the things I've realized is that, like, if I'm going to have this being an operational thing, I'm going to have to probably remove the TIE fighter, like, while that's happening, which isn't a big deal. Like, I think for, like, the purposes of the MOC, like, video and stuff like that, I'll keep it there because it sets the scene, and the TIE fighter is supposed to be there, right? But whenever, like, I'm at a convention or something and I start letting people play around with it, I'll just move the TIE fighter, because I mean, the way it's programmed, I don't need people, like, knocking chunks out of the TIE fighter, having it sitting there. So that's really going to be the plan for that. For the floor, I still need to tile up so much of it. So much of it needs to be tiled up. I do have a decent amount of these black tiles. I'm honestly not sure if it's enough to finish off this whole thing, but fingers crossed, hopefully it is, and I won't have to buy a bunch more black tiles. I'll be able to finish this up. One of the other things I realized is that, like, finally looking at this section as it's supposed to be viewed, because it's not going to be positioned like this. It's actually going to be turned around that way. So the Hangar will, like, the TIE fighter will be facing in that direction. But what I've realized is just this is basically how you'll be looking at it when it's displayed, and it's kind of difficult to actually see those, like, wall patterns that I've made back there. Really, that whole scene back there, like, it's so difficult to see. I didn't realize, like, this wall comes out so far that it's hard to get a view, like, inside there. So, like, I spent all this time, for instance, working on, like, that door, but most people who come up and look at this MOC aren't going to see it at all unless you really get your head in here and kind of peep around there, which isn't bad. Like, I don't mind. Gives people a reason to try to look more closely at the MOC, so it's not the worst thing. But what it does tell me is I probably shouldn't spend so much time working on details, like, especially in this corner over here, or more specifically, basically, like, back down in that section, because you aren't really going to be able to see it. Like, even if you get close in there, there's still a decent amount of it that you can't see, and that's just the way it is. What you might think is, like, oh, what if people are viewing it from the other side? But that, basically, if you look in, there's going to be a big rock wall right there, and on the other side of that rock wall is going to be the other side of the interior, like where Snoke's room, the cafeteria, stuff like that. Rooms like that are going to be on the other side. So for now, I mean, I'm happy that I did this, because I would have spent a lot of time probably building on this side and maybe adding details in here that ultimately no one is ever going to see. It also kind of influenced me to be more parts conservative, right? Like, one of the things I've been noticing is I'm running super low on dark gray brick, 2x brick and dark gray, and it's not looking too hot. Like, I have still a decent amount. Like, I'm not going to be, like, in trouble anytime soon, but I know for the rest of this MOC that I have to build, because there's so much of it, I want to need to conjure up some dark gray brick from somewhere. So what I actually started doing was making this light gray. I think I might have discussed this, just the reason why the walls on this are light gray, whereas the walls on the other side are dark gray. And it's just what you gotta do to conserve brick. You know, when you build big like this, you don't want to put yourself in a position where, you know, you've wasted all the bricks you need and you're only left with stuff that you don't need. So I'm trying to remain a little bit cognizant of that. But I think that's pretty much really what I wanted to discuss in terms of just logistical things and my plans moving forward with the hangar section of the build. Now let's show you what you all have been waiting for. I'm actually going to move the TIE Fighter. I'm going to set up some figs here, and I'm going to show you guys the crane. It works pretty well. You can just control it. You can make it go forward and backwards and side to side. There's a button you press, the crane will drop down, it'll attempt to grab something, then it'll come back up, and then there's another button to release. Some may ask, why not make it like a functioning crane machine where you grab something, then it like pulls it over to a corner and then drops it. That's still something I am considering. I think that it certainly isn't out of the realm of possibilities in so far as like what I'm able to program. But like, I'm trying to decide whether or not I want to make it an actual crane game or more just an interactive thing, kind of like it is in the Lego Star Wars game. Like the goal is to pick something up and then drag it over to a hole and drop it in, which does beg another question: where the heck is the hole? I don't have any on the floor right now, but the way this is actually designed, I can pull up any of these like squares and create that. So I'm thinking of probably just putting the hole up here in the front. Like I would love to be able to be in a situation where I could just like set up a bunch of figures here and then like let kids come by at a convention, play the crane game, see if they can drop in the hole. If they drop it, you get to keep the figure. I'm not quite sure what figures I'd want to give away like that at a convention, because I mean it's a long convention day and that's a lot of figures I'd just be letting people have. But it's a consideration. I'll give it some more thought. I mean, I have tons of those Kiadi Mundis and Barris Offies from those clone battle packs, so maybe that'd be a good way to get rid of some of those guys. But who knows, but we'll see about that. For now, let's go ahead and move the TIE Fighter. I'm going to set the camera down, get my phone out, and I'm going to play a little bit of a crane game so you guys can experience what this is like. Alright guys, I got my minifig set up on the platform. I have my Powered Up app powered up to control the crane. And I also put a little bin here. I'm going to make a little bit of a game out of this. So yeah, I have 6 figures, and the goal is to see how many of these figures I can actually get in that bucket. Some things that can go wrong is like if I try to grab a figure and it falls over, that figure is pretty much inaccessible at that point. So let's see how many of these guys I can get into that bucket. And that's going to finish up this week's update. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm just still mind blown that this thing behind me actually works. It's so fun to mess around with. I know my friend John Cena is going to have a good time coming over and messing around with that once he comes over for the next round of Let's Plays that we film. But definitely let me know what you guys think about it. It's a bit much for an Easter egg, but I think that it's cool. I think at conventions especially, people are really going to get a kick out of being able to interact with this MOC more than they really have been able to interact with any of my builds before. Moving forward, I really want to refine the crane, make it at least mostly one color, because now it's pretty colorful, and also modify the way it moves on one of the main tracks. Basically just make it a little bit smoother, because right now it's a little bit rough around the edges. But the fact that it works is a huge deal, and it's so fun to play around with. That's probably my favorite part of the build right now. I'm also going to be just working on finishing this side of the hangar, building up the rest of the wall, implementing the lights in the floor, because that's something I've really been putting off up until this point, and hopefully building more of the light section behind this, basically the opposite wall of where Ray is climbing. I need to actually start doing it on the other side, and maybe even building the top section. So there's lots to build in this part of the MOC, but the fascinating thing about it is, like, once this hangar is fully done, I'm actually going to move to the opposite side of the MOC, which is actually going to be on this side, and start working on even more interior rooms, cool things like the big Snoke room. There's going to be like a cafeteria, other Easter egg type rooms, just things you would expect to see in Starkiller base. So lots of exciting things to look forward to as we work more and more on this build. So that's going to finish up the video. If you guys like what I do, go ahead and support the video by hitting the like button, support the channel by smashing that subscribe button, and I'll be back again very soon.